Number 1. As I've been reading these stories, I began to think about my own experience. And well, here it is. It was the summer of my 10th grade year. Hormones were high, stress was even higher. Boys, homework, and the internet. That's what my life basically consisted of. When summer finally rolled around, I seized the chance that I had. When both of my parents were at work, brother was in summer reading school. I threw on a light, some hiking boots, and I set out for the woods at the end of my street. To give some background, the woods aren't very big, maybe a half-mile thick with the river between each shore, about 5 miles in length. That was my safe haven, and I was always calm when I was there. Except this time. I wish I hadn't gone. I didn't really have a set destination, so I just started walking down the path. I had gone maybe a mile when I heard footsteps behind me. Naturally, I turned around, only to see 3 burly guys with 2 dogs. I shrugged this off, shot them a smile, and got off the trail so that they can pass me. Dog walkers weren't really any cause for alarm, so I shrugged it off. I headed down a handmade trail, towards a small fort a few of the neighborhood kids had built. I was walking around the structure and spent about 20 minutes, just enjoying the sunshine and the silence. I heard branches snapping and turned, hoping it was maybe a deer. But instead, I see the same guys, picking their way through the woods from behind me. Mind you, I was staring at the fort, and these guys had taken another path. I watched them for a moment, wondering if maybe they were teaching their dog something. Again, it wouldn't be the first time. Instead, they were staring directly at me. I got up and grabbed my jacket and headed back towards the main path. A red flag going up as I turned to see the 3 guys walking after me. I turned onto the path and took a deep breath. I started at a slow jog. I wanted to get to a place I knew I could hide. I couldn't go home. They were blocking the path towards my house. I heard them reach the path, and then raise voices and pounding feet. I picked up my pace until I was sprinting down the path. I took a sharp turn and slid down a steep incline and sprinted into a place me and my friends used to call the dunes. It was a sand pit bordering the river. I could hear them cursing and howling as they struggled to get down the incline, their dogs growling, and a thought from who knows where came to mind that if I hid, they could always set their dogs on me, and I'd be helpless to protect myself. I turned to my next option, a thick tree that had bridged the river. There was no way they could possibly get their dogs to cross that. I made a mad dash towards the tree before freezing, weighing my options in a vain hope that they hadn't followed me. They did. I scrambled up onto the tree and began crawling towards the other shore. I heard shouting, and I turned to see the guys still trying to get their dogs up onto the log. I landed on the shore and spun, breathing hard. They were shouting curse words at me, and one even threatened to kill me. In my stupidity, I had forgotten my cell phone at home, and I inwardly cursed at myself. Soon, the guys left with their dogs, and I stayed there until dark just to make sure they were gone. I don't know what I had done for them to do what they did, and I'm thankful that I knew the paths well enough to save my own life. So, 3 creepy guys who scared me to death. Let's not meet. Number 2. So, this happened a week ago at around the same time, 2 a.m. Just a bit of background, I live in the UK and go to uni. I live in a fairly typical student house, in a bad area, full of damp, etc. Anyway, it's the Easter holidays here, and we get 2 weeks off. There's 7 of us in the house usually, but everyone has gone home. I don't have a lot of family, and I have ridiculous amounts of work to do, so I decided to stay here for Easter. Now, I don't care when I say this, but I hate being alone. Every little fucking noise at night still freaks me out, and I'm 22 years old. Anyway, yesterday I set up camp in the living room, doing some work with headphones in. There's a door from the living room that leads to the backyard. Really small yard with another door leading to a small alley. I go out for a smoke down the alley, which is creepy as fuck. When I got back inside, I had one of those something's wrong here moments. I was thinking about how paranoid I was as I walked into the kitchen. As I got a drink, I realized I definitely heard a noise. I pulled a knife out of the drawer. That's when I saw that there was a shadow near the empty space where the old washing machine was. I nearly pissed myself, and I didn't know what to do. I don't know why I did this, but I threw some kitchen towels at him. He fucking screamed and banged his head on the wood. I was standing there with a knife, and the guy looked at me dead in the eyes. He had some crazy contact lenses in, like blood red ones. Just fucking made the entire situation worse. I looked at him and said, "Get the fuck out or I'll call the police." He ran out through the door, into the alley, and fucked off. I rang the police and told them about it. Completely forgot about the washing machine space. Showed the police where he came in. There was a fucking bag with 3 knives, lighter fluid, and matches. I honestly didn't know what to do. Safe to say, crazy-eyed guy. Let's not meet. Update. The officer is ringing me in about 20 minutes about the case. I'll post what he says on here. Update 2. Right, if anyone's still listening, got off the phone call. Looks like it's worse. There's been an attack on the house 2 doors down from mine. Officer didn't give me specifics, just that they haven't found the guy. But they're looking for someone with red eyes. Update 3. So, since then, I took up another Redditor's advice and told the uni about the incident, including the accommodation team. They've put a mass email about the crime in the area. The police officer said that there was an attack on a person 2 doors down. We'll call her Anonymous, but didn't give me any more info. I spoke to my next door neighbor, and she said all she heard was screaming and shouting, but that she always hears domestic issues from that house, so she didn't call the police. Then she got a knock on her door, asking her about the attack. The police didn't tell her anything, not happy about that. But my neighbor said she hasn't heard from or seen Anonymous since the incident. So anyway, I got back last night, still on my own, fucking shitting myself, and called the police to see what was going on. I asked if the attack was linked to what happened to me, and they just kept on saying that they can't give out any information at the moment. Asked about Anonymous, and they said the same thing. Actually made me more worried. They assured me that they were doing patrols around the area for the next week now anyway, but I haven't seen any police officers or cars on my walks. So last night, it was okay. A few noises in the night, but probably just cats or some shit. The next door's neighbor's dad put a security light in for her after what happened, and it keeps going off. Again, probably just cats. I keep getting paranoid and running to my window. The only weird thing was around 3:30 a.m. Most of the time I saw nothing, but the last time I looked, I'm sure there was a shadow cast on my neighbor's back wall. The other weird thing is that her dogs were barking like crazy, and they didn't the other times the lights went off. It freaked me the fuck out, so I stupidly looked away like a coward. I should have kept on looking, but noped out of it. I did hear some small noises, but nothing major. Number 3. When I was young, my mother and I took the bus a lot because she didn't have a car. This incident happened during that stretch of time. More specifically, when I was around the age of 5 or 6. We were at the closest bus stop to my house, which is situated right next to a fairly large tree. I remember it being a pretty nice afternoon, bright and breezy, and my mom was reading one of her paperback novels while I inspected the trunk of the tree for small lizards. We lived in Florida, which is swarming with anoles. I was really into animals back then, and I loved pretending I was tracking down dangerous critters like Steve Irwin. My search was proving to be kind of fruitless though, since I was making a lot of noise by stomping around, and I'm pretty sure any lizards nearby had heard me, and were already well hidden from the grasp of my chubby little hands. Nevertheless, I kept up the hunt, eventually forgetting that I was supposed to stay within my mother's line of sight, and went around to the other side of the tree to look. The bench my mom was sitting on was now out of my view, and she likewise wouldn't have been able to see me if she looked up. As I scrabbled about on my hands and knees in the grass by the tree, I heard light footsteps coming up a ways behind me, and turned around to see a man making his way towards me. I don't remember much about how he looked, but I know he seemed very tall. The way the sun was facing placed most of his face frame in the shadow of the tree, which gives my recollection of him a vaguely surreal quality. At the time, though, he was just a man who was looking at me. He greeted me warmly as I stared up at him, and asked me what I was doing outside all alone. I guess he hadn't seen my mother because of the tree, and thought I was unsupervised. I'd always been a shy child, particularly around adults, so I didn't respond, choosing to continue looking at him. I was a little wary, but he didn't seem like a threat, and it was in the middle of the afternoon. He seemed to take my silence as confirmation of his assumption, because he followed up his previous question by telling me he was taking a walk and asking if I would like to join him to get some ice cream. He didn't wait for me to answer this time, but continued a gentle stream of words, saying he liked my dress and wanted to be my friend. As he was speaking, I noticed that he was slowly stepping closer and closer to me. I was beyond mere wariness at this point, and my mind was sliding towards alarm. But I didn't know if I'd be able to run away from him before he could reach me. My family had always warned me not to go anywhere with strangers, and the serious concern on their faces when they told me had made me certain that following an unknown person was a very scary bad thing, even if I wasn't old enough to understand why at the time. When the man was within arm's length of me, he reached out his hand and brushed the tips of his fingers against my shoulder. I'll never forget that moment, how my bubble of personal space had been pressed inward and then pierced. Whatever spell of silence I had been under was immediately broken, and I screamed as loud as I could, twisting violently away from his hand. The man flinched and froze, seeming to calculate what his next move would be, now that I was proving to be less of an easy target than he expected. His decision was made for him when my mom, jolted out of her reading by my cry, appeared from around the other side of the tree and spotted us. She screeched at him. I've never seen her that angry again in all my life, and he immediately spun to flee without a word. A shiny black car that I hadn't noticed before was parked on the side of the road a pretty good distance away from us, and when the man reached it, he got into it quickly and sped off. He never paused to start it up, which means it must have been running the entire time it was sitting there. This small detail didn't mean much to my immature mind at the time, but remembering it now gives me chills. It's pretty obvious that he wasn't just some friendly guy on a stroll who happened upon a lonely child. He had spied me from the road, stopped his car, and left it running for a speedy getaway once he'd snatched me up. I can only imagine where he truly would have taken me if I hadn't alerted my mom or put up a fight. Thank you for listening to this 3 true scary stories from Reddit. Remember, if you like this video, to leave a thumbs up and also subscribe for future content. I would just like to take a second also to apologize for it being almost a month in between my previous video and this video. I've just had a lot of things going on, but I promise from here on out I will post continuously at least once or twice a week. But until next time everyone, have a great night, and as always, stay safe.